What is going on, guys? This is again, of course, it's me. It's me. Of course, it's me. It's just me. It's always gonna be me. But this is Apex the New King, and instead of giving you guys a traditional Warzone episode for this time around, I had the idea of taking it a different path, at least for this week. It won't be a occurring thing that'll happen often or anything like that. I just kind of decided that I wanted to finally make this video. I finally wanted to create a what I'll call Origins video for Warzone itself. I've only done one of these prior, which was me doing mine on The Purge, which that was at an earlier time when I wasn't able to do like half the stuff I can now. Like I'm further into the art of editing and being able to put stuff together. So this is one of those things now where I'm going to be able to go in depth with you on a lot of things in Warzone and a lot of things that are to come in Warzone. So this is that episode for anybody that wanted to know where the idea of Warzone came from, how I put it together, and any other things that are like, quote, behind the scenes of the creation that has become what I can call YouTube's greatest wrestling show, at least in video game form. So join me as we explore what it is that I've created in this thing called Warzone.
Play hard. That's all that I know. Whole squad got the remedy for the enemy, better let it be. Whole world on lost hope with my bare hands, I'ma set them free. You haters, I pay you no mind, you just step in the way. I live for my honor, you know that my word I will never betray. Cause you don't want problems now, homie, you better refrain from starting something when it's all done. For those who are just joining me, I am again Apex the New King, and this is gonna be, the Warzone Origins for just Warzone in general. Like, Warzone itself has become it's become something of its own, but for me to go so far back in time and truly remember like where it was that my mind was and everything when I came up with the idea for doing my own wrestling show, like it was entirely something that I thought would be impossible. But at the same time, I always knew that I had the creative mind to make it happen. I just didn't know if I had the tools necessary to create a actually good wrestling show. So I initially came across the idea when I was watching something on YouTube called The Wrestle War. I don't know if any of you actually know of it or know where it exactly came from or who runs that show, but the Wrestle War, it inspired me so much to actually pull that trigger and really go through with the idea of making myself a wrestling show for YouTube. And I also think me seeing that show was the thing that also gave me the push, because again, I always had the creative mind of I'm able to make this show work. I'm able to do this, I'm able to do that, I'm able to put this character here, put that character there. I know storylines in my head, I know pay-per-views in my head, I know how I want my arenas to look, I know how I want my championships to look. I always had these creative things in my head, but I was never able to actually relay them to any other thing. Like, I didn't think I had the necessary tools to actually put it together. But even something as simple as the name, once I started to really look into it, I did this thing. I went on the community creations to kind of get an idea for what names were being used and what names weren't being used.
and I came across this arena that was, like, in my opinion, it was utterly, like, horrific. Like, the arena itself was, it was okay, but it was like they were using the name Warzone, and it was like, this is kind of, I don't want to put that creator out there, but this is kind of like, this is disrespectful to the name of Warzone. Like, you have so much potential with this name. You're able to do so much. So if this person is not doing that amount with it, then I should be able to do that. This name Warzone, I like it. It kind of runs real well with a wrestling show. So let's just see where we can go from here. Let's just see what we can actually do with this name. And from the name, it sparks so many different things for me. Like the pay-per-views following it. We had a Civil War. Civil War. Everything is a war zone. Civil War is, of course, you're in war. But Civil War, then came Deletion. It's so many. It was Fight for Honor. Like every single pay-per-view, it ties within the name of Warzone. It is all having to do with a war. So it was like everything fell together so beautifully, and the storylines that I had like in my mind, it was all fitting together so perfectly. And because it fit so perfectly like it did, I didn't have to worry about a lot of things, because the characters were a combination of different things. Like I took my friends or people from my personal life, or just characters that were already created, an entire combination of things, and I put them all together into this one grand show. And me being able to do that, me being able to target the, I guess you can say the general audience that I was looking for, which I can admit, in the beginning of Warzone actually going up, I really did it for the wrong reason. I was making shows entirely for the wrong reason. When I initially started Warzone, I was doing it and I was using those characters that I had, those character submissions that I would get of different people that were actually known to me in my life, or friends of mine that would upload their characters or anything like that. I was doing Warzone with the intention that, oh, if I use their characters, then they'll watch the show.
Yeah, live from the Gulf Coast. Welcome to the greatest spectacle scene around the world. Tonight is the night we face our enemies. All the gold is up for grabs. Always keep your eye on the prize. I'm a beast. It's time to make it believe. There's no one defeating the team. If you want it, then you gotta grab it. Raise up your fist. You want it, you got it. Raise up your fist. Ready for the challenge. Raise up your fist. Ready for the challenge. I heard that they said we were scared of the fire, but I'm in here in the woods I desire. So I don't care what you think. I'll be the one that makes you go to play. I'll be the one to defeat the Kraken. I'm a beast and I'm always attacking. So tell me what's happening. Raiding your village and lighting the matches. So far from average. I'm a beast. It's time to make them believe. There's no one defeating the team. If you want it, then you gotta grab it. Raise up your fist. You want it, you got it. Raise up your fist. Ready for the challenge. Raise up your fist. Ready for the challenge. I heard that they said we were scared of the fire, but I'm in here in the
That wasn't the right way for me to go about it. I know that now, that with or without those characters, I am able to put together still what I would call the best wrestling show on YouTube. I don't see anybody doing wrestling shows the way that I do them. No person is creating shows, making shows, doing a script for their shows, and actually, I guess you can say, putting that show out like a full-on live televised thing. that's the way that I want my shows to be interpreted. I wanted my shows to be my own. I'm not using the standard music of what's in a WWE game or anything like that. No, I take my time to record everything, edit everything, put music where it belongs, put music where it doesn't belong. Yeah, everything like that. I take my time to do all of that. So to me, that makes my show stand out more than anybody else's. And I think overall, the storylines and the characters and everything started to play out so well. Like, that all goes hand in hand to us leading up to me doing a story with the WWE. Me doing that story was more so for myself. And to further explain, like, doing it for myself meant that I was gonna give myself a even bigger something to go off of. Because it was always easy for me to say, alright, I'm just gonna use the WWE's logo. I'm gonna do that instead of making my own, because it's all a W. I didn't want to do it that way. Which is why I came up with that story, the entire pay-per-view revolving around deletion. Because, just like deletion is, something goes away. That entire show of deletion was WWE versus WPW. Whichever show won the most, treated like a Survivor Series, but it actually matters. I was entirely prepared. If my show had lost that night, I would have continued everything just as this is my universe mode, but I'm using Raw and SmackDown. I was entirely ready for that if it came to it. But at the end of the day, my show was actually superior and we actually won the more of the matches. So that gave me a bit of confidence when it came to not just my roster overall, but mostly the picks that were, well, not even the picks, the decisions that were made to actually do that show against WWE. Because it's like their show lost, meaning the show that remains, we're free to use whatever it is that we choose to from their show. It was never a thing of, alright, so now we've beaten them, now it just goes away. No, anything that I choose to use now, for those people that know the history, I can use anything WWE related. Because in my universe, WWE does not exist anymore. Those names that were a part of WWE, they're no longer signed there. They're either in Warzone or they're somewhere else. So when I'm able to use things like the Royal Rumble, that's because the Royal Rumble no longer belongs to the WWE. That is why I chose to do the big story between my show and their show. And not only that, I was having so many different things to happen in my shows that were entirely being taken on by themselves, like the team The Purge. Of course, I'll always look at The Purge as my absolute greatest creation. The Purge will always be that one thing to me that I sat down and I thought entirely deeply about it. Like, okay, what if there was this 3-man group? It reminded me of the Shield in my thought. People were able to, you know, maybe somehow sort of beat Roman, Dean, and Seth by themselves. It'd be rare occasions, but people have done it. There is 3 of us in my group of friends. We're the best of the best out of the group. What would happen if we created a 3-man group? Would we be able to be stopped, or would anybody actually be able to stand to us? And just like I thought, it was absolute carnage for the people that weren't involved. Like the Purge, it was it seemed as if the purge in Warzone still fairly took after the purge of the original, because there was no team that was able to stand against them. There was no one person, there was no 3 people, there was no 4 people who could ever stand against them. So even the prime example of what we witnessed at Mania, or Revelations, the 3-man team, A. Smith, the Scrap Soldiers, dismantled within what, a minute, something like that, a minute or 2, something like that, whatever the timing was. This is that trio. Like, we've seen a tag team match with Fugaku and King, and they completely stole the show of that night. But you add that 3rd man, and that same team that gave a fight no longer did that. The same team that was giving them a 5-star match was no longer able to do that. And that's just a testament to how much it is that the Purge and the show, the characters, everything, they've taken on their own. But even with all of that success leading up to my very first WrestleMania, there was a lot of things that ultimately added to Warzone momentarily coming to an end. There was around the time where the release for 2K20 was coming, and I know for sure I wanted to continue Warzone in 2K20. That was the ultimate goal, was for Warzone to continue. But upon the release, it was very difficult for me. That's the best way I can put it. It was very, very difficult for me to actually make Warzone work and make it happen on 2K20, because the game itself was not the best to work with. It wasn't at all something good to work with. So for me to try and kind of make my vision come to life and not really have the resources again, that was a shock to me. Like, it was, what do I do from here? This is the newest game. Do I decide to go back to 19? Is that what I do? How can I bring Warzone to life in 19 when 20 is the newest game? What exactly can I do at that point? What happens to me? What happens to the show? Does it still have the same success? Does it still feel the same? Does the show feel like it's going forward instead of going backward? And those were the kind of thoughts I had. I didn't know for sure if I'd be able to make a lot of things work. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I went through with the idea because I had a bunch of storylines that I could still do. And it was probably the best decision that I did make to actually bring Warzone back and actually do Warzone again, because it is probably the most entertaining thing for me to do, and that is to put together my wrestling shows, and that is for me to be able to bring my creativity to the screen and see other people actually enjoy what it is that I put together.
I got the G pen in the booth with me. Mad, bro? Most of the time when these people be talking, I don't even hear them. They talk and they talk, but I do not hear shit when I'm near them. I swear to God that I came up, same stuff, never changed up. Taking shots, get your aim up. Wanna play, get your game up. And I see you hating, so you know I gotta ask.
That is probably the one thing that I really, really enjoy doing, and Warzone gives me that opportunity.
That everybody gonna talk. They all got something
to say. I bet you can hear it loud cause I'm up in your face. And everybody goes nuts when I'm up in a place. It's K-Flum or Kevin, whatever you want. And I'ma eat the beat up like it's dinner or lunch. And I be looking at my clock, man, my timing is a shit. And you got it in a second, well I got it in a jiff. Killing all y'all like I got it on my hip. Didn't bring a fuck, I forgot it in a whip. Met a bad chick cause I got her off the strip. And she talk about my dick cause she got it on her lips. Got a few girls in the DM. When I hit the city, I'ma see them. Roll up with my homies in the gym. Probably bringing drama like a BM. Get your girl taking call Liam. Yo, I beat the beat up, you can call me Sharkeisha. Since I dropped that, everyone wanna feature. Been in the game and you watch from the bleachers. I'm out with your chick and she buying me sneakers. Hottest white boy that you ever seen. Working hard trying to get a house with a mezzanine. Never liked school, always been a C. I like what I see, I got better needs. And you mad, most of the time when these people be talking, I don't even hear them. They talk and they talk, but I do not hear shit when I'm near them. I swear to God that I came up. Same stuff, never changed up. Taking shots, get your aim up. Wanna play, get your game up. And I see you hating, so you know I gotta ask. You mad, bro? I said, tell me what you mad for. You mad, bro? Yo, I said, tell me what you mad for. You mad, bro? Yo, I said, tell me what you mad for.
This guy is just actually trying this hard to be champion. It never has that feel to it if you're making the decisions yourself. Is you picking which superstar has what opportunity. You're picking what superstar wins this championship. Instead of letting it play itself out and seeing if this character would actually become world champion someday. It's so much that has been better on my part. The decision to take my show and do it live. I didn't have commentary the first time around of doing Warzone. I literally would just introduce the show and that would be it. There would be no voice throughout the show. There would be no personality to it. It was just it. You would hope that the match was good enough to carry some weight. Because if the match didn't carry anything, what makes a person stay and watch it? There was no voice. There was no direction. There was no personality to the show. But the storylines were good. Storylines can only carry you so far. You needed to have that personality. I needed to have that personality. And for me to have that personality, I ultimately had to make that decision. I should do my show live. I should take my show live on YouTube and I should see what happens. And I have not been disappointed thus far. Doing my shows live has been the best feeling because I'm able to rewatch all of this creation and I'm able to watch it play out in a live sense. And that's the most satisfying thing for me to really see. So yeah, ultimately I have always had this vision for Warzone. I've always had this idea that I wanted to do my own wrestling show, and I am ultimately extremely happy that I actually went through with it and actually started doing it, because I feel like Warzone it's taken over the entirety of my channel. It's taken over the entirety of my creative mind, and that is ultimately what it is that I wanted to find. I wanted to find the thing that I loved doing, the thing that I loved waiting to see like come to life. And being able to see my storylines and seeing my arenas and seeing everything like that actually be used and actually appreciated. Something that I couldn't ask for any better. But this has been just the Warzone Origins, and I will be seeing every one of you in, next week's show, which just might be on a Tuesday, because there's a draft that is happening. There's a draft that's happening, and there's going to be 2 shows. One of them's going to be Tuesday and one of them's going to be Thursday. So I guess you just have to tune in to see what exactly happens in those 2 shows. But again, this has been ApexTheNewKing. This has been Warzone Origins, and I'll see all of you next time, whenever I do have an Origins to get over.
But I'm promise to put on a show.